I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today our guest is Hayden Coleman with Moovers and Shakers. We'll be back to talk with him after this. Welcome, Hayden.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So, I don't know that I've seen you much since graduation, which was, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, December 2013.
And when last we met, you were trying to get a food truck launch that specializes in milkshakes.
Yep.
And from everything I hear from all of my students who love your food truck, things are going pretty well.
Things are finally. It's been a long road, and you know, it's one of those things that you know, I think when I first started out, again, I was I think it was a sophomore. I was 19.
Right.
I think I had only taken maybe one entrepreneurship class, if that.
Oh, if that. Yeah.
By that point, and you know, and I just decided this is just too good of an idea to not go for it, even though I don't totally know what I'm doing. And it has been the learning experience of a lifetime, but it's just really wonderful because I mean, there was a point, I think, back in late 2012, I was getting really fed up just because my business model was not working. Just the parts weren't adding up.
Well, let's talk about that because you know, you are a business model I bring in every semester to the class because I mean, people know about the business, and it's just you know, it is the perfect example of how getting bootstrapping right, getting the business model right, and getting break-even figured out, and doing all those things simultaneously is trickier than people realize.
Oh yeah.
Because you have a fairly simple business. You're driving a truck around and making milkshakes.
Yep.
And yet there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, you've got overhead expenses. So talk a little bit about some of the overhead challenges you've had with this kind of a business.
You know, I think when I was first starting, I had a business partner, and we thought it was super realistic that we could just do everything.
Right.
You know, we just felt so sure of that.
Right.
And how wrong we were. You know, and I'm just like, oh, I'm good with numbers. I can handle all of my accounting and filing my taxes. Right. No.
Right.
And it's been one of those things to where I've learned that you know, there definitely is that balance of, you know, what should I do, you know, in-house to save costs that don't really need outsourcing versus what are some things that I'm literally not strong at and need someone else who specializes in that in order to create the best business.
And that actually can end up saving you money.
Yes,
over
in the long run.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. One of the things that you and I kind of ran around and round about was the whole pricing issue with this.
Yeah.
I remember you were setting your pricing kind of comparing to restaurants where people go in and order a milkshake.
Yeah.
And you just weren't making money at that price point.
Not at all. My best thinking at the time was I'm going to see what all of these restaurants are doing and what other people, anyone who serves milkshakes, period, are doing, and I'm going to go in right under that. Right. You know, I mean, not like fast food level right under that, but still. And that was my strategy, which I really thought was great at the time. And one thing that I didn't realize is that, you know, pricing is so psychological. Right. I mean, I've now based my pricing honestly more on the psychology of my customers and the marketplace rather than my actual, even really my actual cost structure, which I do take into account.
But you need to, because your cost structure, I mean, you're in the food truck market, you're dealing with premium product. You're dealing with, and I remember you, you know, you insist on very good quality ingredients, and interesting ingredients. I mean, some of the flavors that I've heard people come back and say they've had from you are exotic, to say the least.
Yep.
And I'm sure not cheap sometimes to source some of those ingredients. And so, you know, when you kind of peg that pricing to more sort of generic, run-of-the-mill kind of stuff, when you've got better material and you're in an environment in food trucks where people, their psychology is this is going to cost more because this is the environment where I'm going to, I mean, look what they pay for a grilled cheese sandwich, for crying out loud.
Exactly. And, you know, if you
look what I pay for a grilled cheese sandwich when I go out there.
Exactly. And, you know, even when I was you know, first getting started, first coming up with the idea, the grilled cheese was still pretty new.
Right.
I think they'd only been around maybe a month. And still, I had no problem paying that amount because, you know, it's not just the grilled cheese sandwich I can make with, you know, that, you know, slice of American cheese that's in my fridge that's been sitting there for a couple weeks, and, you know, that stale bread that I have in my pantry. It's you know, it's very quality, locally sourced cheeses and done. I mean, and you know, Crystal, who's a good friend of mine, who's one of the head chefs. I mean, she is a trained chef. Like, she went to Le Cordon Bleu. I mean, she's legit. Right. And her sandwiches reflect that. They're very simple, but they're elevated and taken to a higher level. And so are your milkshakes, which is why you have to. But you almost seemed nervous about charging more. Oh, absolutely. What do you? And I mean, 95% of the entrepreneurs I meet suffer from this kind of apologizing to the market kind of mentality, where they go, yeah, but I'm new, and they're just not going to trust me. And talk about the psychology of that, though, in terms of what it communicates. Absolutely. I think the thing, because one thing that we got feedback from, you know, early on was that, oh, it's great because these milkshakes are so cheap, which at first I was like, oh, that's great, but then I realized I'm just like, yeah, but I'd rather them say, oh, wow, these are great milkshakes. Right, because the price communicated to them that these are cheap. I mean, and how it is now, I mean, I even have now, I'm charging even more than, even for certain menu items, not quite twice as much as what I was charging, but almost. Right. And some people are a little hesitant at first, but I'm like, trust me, you're really going to like this milkshake. And every single time they come back and they're just like, this is one of the best milkshakes I've ever had. Right, right. There you go. So things have gone well enough where you were telling me before we went on the air, you finally have a real food truck now. Yes. Because you were operating out of a van for a long time. It was again, we were just trying to get whatever we could afford. I mean, we had total, literally we had less than $10,000 total startup costs, like, period. And we didn't have, you know, very much money being, again, 19 and in college. Right. And so now we've really upgraded to the truck that I really think we should have had from the get-go. It's a lot bigger. It's over tripled my storage capacity. So it's a traditional size food truck kind of a vehicle now. Yeah. So was that a scary thing to think about? Was that a scary purchase, or was it, we're so far beyond needing this that you didn't even blink? Or both? I would say both, honestly, because the end of last year, it was just, I mean, we were having just such severe growing pains that it was just like, it was so not working. And I mean, there was a few, I think, pieces of equipment that really just needed to be replaced. But since I knew I was about to invest in this brand new truck with brand new equipment, I couldn't quite yet. So it was probably the last, like the few events I did in November of last year were really, really rough, because it's like, you know, we were getting this demand for more than what this truck could really handle. And so they're saying, hey, this is great, but I don't want to wait 20 minutes to get a milkshake. Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, I had some people, you know, at a church event where, you know, people should be, you know, really nice and kind, but just saying some really horrible things about me because they were having to wait for so long. Right. And, you know, and I really couldn't be mad at them because they were totally correct. I mean, it was just getting to the point where we so desperately, you know, needed that bigger truck that could provide the workflow that we needed to have a quicker turnaround time and to be able to carry more product, because we would end up, selling out a lot of times, because that's a challenge of having a truck, is you can only carry so much product on that truck. So it's, and a lot of times there's not like, oh, well, let me just go in the back and get more. There is no back.
Right.
It is just the truck.
Right.
So, being able to, I still haven't once yet completely sold out in an event. And I've been doing, again, even double and triple even sometimes of what I was able to do even last year.
So are you seeing any decline in the food truck craze and interest, or is it still alive and well, do you think? Or is it kind of maturing out a little bit? Kind of what do you sense?
It's maturing out a little bit. I would say especially the industry here in Nashville is reaching that critical point, because right around 2012, there was just this huge influx of trucks. Because in 2011, when we got started, there was only about 8 to 10 of us that got started. And then the next year, there was like 20-something. And it's, and it just kind of reached this curve. And so now it's kind of reaching that point to where people are just like, okay, food trucks, but is it good?
Right.
Like, are you reliable? Is this something that's going to be interesting enough to where I'm going to want to, find you again and come back to your truck? And, we're kind of reaching that point to where early on, you could really sell just about anything out of a truck.
Right.
And people were just like, oh my gosh, this is out of a truck. This is so cool. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to pay a bunch of money for it. It's going to be great.
Right.
And it could be just the worst food and horrible, but it was so new and so cool. People were still willing to do that. And we're past that point now. And it's reaching that point to where it's a lot more difficult.
Right.
For someone entering into the marketplace right now. I mean,
but it's good for those of you who understand how to provide good quality goods, because that gets recognized by the market now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's getting to the point where people aren't willing to accept really subpar food, and especially there's so many more people now who are offering just, amazing high quality of food and products and variety of cuisine that it's just like, if you can't compete on that level, it's going to be really rough going for you.
Well, it is so good to see you again and catch up, and look forward to seeing you more often. Thanks,
yeah,
Hayden.
absolutely.
Appreciate you coming by.
Yep.